Welcome to Make Something. I'm David Petruto. Today I'm going to show you how to freehand route and make some neon lights. And don't worry if you don't have a router, there are other ways which we'll go over. Today's video is brought to you by Simply Safe. Check it. These are called neon flexible light strips. I get them from Amazon. They are 5 meters in length, and this was about $22. It does not come with a power supply, which I also get from Amazon for another $13. So once you get it out of the package, you'll see that it is very, very flexible. It has this thick rubber-like substance to it, and it feels high quality. Like I can really bend this. It has a nice feel to it. This is red. It comes in a whole bunch of colors. This is a woodworking channel, so we are going to use woodworking tools to make this sign because woodworkers like to complicate things. We're going to use a router to route a groove for this to sit in. Now you don't have to have woodworking tools to do this, and I'm going to quickly show you what you can do if you don't want to use or if you don't have a router. The bottom of this LED strip is really nice and flat, so it sits flat up against your surface. You can take super glue or CA glue and line that surface with that. You hold it down for a good 45 seconds or so, and then you can move on to the next section, and you can just keep doing that and glue it in place. That is one way. The second option is these little plastic and expensive clips, and it's got two little holes in there, and which allows you to put a nail in there, and you can then set your LED strip in there like so, which also makes your LED strip removable. I tried various router bit sizes and various depths, and I came to the conclusion that a 1/4 inch bit with a 1/4 inch depth works best. This fits perfectly into a 1/4 inch groove and stays put. You really don't even need glue at that size. So I thought I could just print out my design on a piece of paper, use some spray adhesive, and then just follow that line. Little did I know that that paper would want to come up and it would interfere with the router. As you can see, the paper is all torn right here. And because of that, the router would stick and I would not get straight lines, and I was fighting the router the whole time. I thought that was because I was using a 2-flute straight bit, and that was causing the grain of the plywood to come up and also gnarly up the paper there. So I switched over to a compression bit. This is a really expensive bit that usually leaves a super nice clean cut, and at the top of the groove it would pull the fibers down, which also leaves a nice clean bottom. And so I thought, well, that's the solution. Just use a really expensive fancy bit. And I learned that that also did not work. It kept the fibers of the wood in place, but it still caused the paper to come up and then the bottom of the router base to get caught in that paper. So the solution to all of that was just to transfer the image to the wood, outline that with a Sharpie, and then follow that Sharpie. And I'm going to show you how I did that next. I have a piece of 1/2 inch plywood. MDF would also work for this. I'm going to paint it at a later stage, so MDF might make the perfect substrate for something like this. I have printed out my design. I had to print it over 2 pieces of paper, and I'm just going to use some spray adhesive to temporarily attach it to the board and set that down. On my second channel, which we are bringing back, I'll have a tutorial on how I drew this up in Adobe Illustrator and then tiled it across 2 pages. So once this is on there, we're going to need a Sharpie. I got the thicker tipped one, and the ink is just going to bleed through the paper. So you want to use a really cheap, thin paper for this. And I will just take my time and follow the line, knowing that it is bleeding through. And of course, there are other ways to do an image transfer to wood. For this purpose, I found this just to be the easiest and least messy. And that should do it. So if I lift this up, we get a ghosting of our image. And once again, I'm just going to go through and retrace that so I can see it while I'm routing. And there we go. Let's talk about routers. I have 2 plunge routers. You can get by without it being a plunge router, but it's just going to be easier with a plunge router. And I've got a smaller trim one and then a bigger, heavier one. I had success with both of them, but I will say the bigger, heavier one was easier to use. It's nice and heavy, so it never felt like it was going to take off on me, and I could focus more on moving it. The smaller one, I had to move it as well as hold it down to the surface. I did have success, it's just a little bit harder. So if you have a bigger router, it's going to be the way to go. The spindle speed, I had it set to almost the slowest setting that this router will go. That is because we are moving so slow, we don't want that spindle going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, creating all this fine dust and burning everything. So slow, slow, slow. Up until last night, I have never done freehand routing, so it takes a little bit of practice. It took me about 10 minutes and I got an understanding and a feel for it. So if you've never done freehand routing, don't try it on your actual piece for the first time. Just take 10 minutes, work on some scrap, get a feel for the router and the speed and the weight and how you should move it. So now you need to figure out how to clamp your board to your bench. I find that clamps get in the way, so I have this router pad from KenCraft, and you just throw this on your bench and then you throw your board on here and it doesn't move. I know it looks like carpet padding, but it's a little bit more dense and has a little bit more gripping power. There'll be a link to KenCraft's website down in the description. Pick up some hardwood while you're on their website as well. They are good friends of mine. So I can just throw this on here and start routing. I've already gone ahead and thrown in a 1/4 inch bit into the router, and I set the depth to 1/4 inch. This router has amazing dust collection for a router. Unfortunately, the dust collection fitting for this router is going to get in the way of me seeing my line. And since for freehand routing, I am removing this and I'm going to tape my hose and have it dangle along the side here. This is just going to give me a lot more room to see what I'm doing. Every router is going to be different. This is just a little hack that I'm using for this particular router because seeing the line and following the line is going to be very important here. You don't want a jagged line. And it's really important that I somehow have a dust collection hose down in there so it can remove the dust so I can see my lines. This is where practicing and rehearsing is really going to help you before you get to your main piece. I have my hose taped up to the router here and it gives me a little bit of room to move around if I need to. You also want to do a quick air run to make sure your hose and your power cable doesn't get in the way while routing. Something I learned the hard way last night. So I actually have mine clamped in my bench vise right here and it is completely out of the way. So I am going to start with the router plunged and then come in from the side. This is actually the hardest, scariest part, is just getting it started. If you feel more comfortable plunging in from the top and then just cutting off that part of the board later on, you can do that as well. But I did some practice runs. I know that I can plunge it, lock it in place, come in from the side, and then just follow the line, slow and steady. While we are working on these neon signs, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is Simply Safe. Simply Safe is an easy to use, totally customizable home security system. This is something I've been looking forward to for a while. Let me show you Simply Safe's new wireless outdoor security camera. The wireless outdoor security camera features an ultra-wide 140-degree field of view so you can keep watch over your entire yard. It has 1080p HD resolution and you can zoom in 8 times to clearly see things like faces and license plates to capture critical evidence. It has a built-in spotlight with color night vision so you can keep an eye on what's going on around the clock. It also has two-way audio so you can speak or even scare off someone who comes onto your property. It's super simple to set up in just minutes. It's got a magnetic base that allows you to get just the right angle and has an easy to remove rechargeable battery that lasts 3 to 6 months so you can place it anywhere. This outdoor video camera pairs nicely with our video doorbell and our indoor camera, so whether we are home or away, we can keep an eye on our house indoors and out. And as always, the interactive monitoring service will call the police if it's alerted to anything. Take 20% off your Simply Safe security system, and your first month is free when you sign up for the interactive monitoring service. So visit simplysafe.com/makesomething to learn more. There's also a link down in the description. Thank you, Simply Safe. Now let's get back to these neon signs. This cut is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. That's a really long time for a loud router to be right next to your head. So eyes, ears, and lung protection is necessary when doing this. About 3/4 of the way through, I was gaining some confidence and I tried to go a little bit faster, and I did not keep a straight line there. And I kind of went to the left or right of the black line instead of meeting it down the middle a couple of times, but that's okay. This isn't the Router Olympics. This is a neon sign, and it's going to look perfectly fine. So now I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and cut the outside shape. You don't want to do that first because you don't want the router tipping over the edge. So I got that all sanded up, and now I'm just putting on a coat of paint. And this is the same paint color as my wall, so this will kind of blend in with the background. I'm not worried too much about getting inside the groove because that's all going to get covered. I just want the top as well as the outside edge. A last minute decision. On the back side, I decided I'm going to route another groove pretty close along the outside edge. That way when this is sitting on the wall, I'm hoping that it creates a little glow to give a border to the whole thing. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. We'll see. Everything is an experiment. So now we have the back routed. Something to note is when I was completing the loop, as it got to the part where there was no more wood, the router took off on me a little bit, and you can see right here, that is because there was no more resistance and I wasn't ready for that. So now I'm going to put the neon LED in the back here to see if I'm going to get the effect that I am looking for. These neon strips do come with one end that's wired up. So if your design has no sharp corners and is one long string, you can get by with no soldering at all and just cut off the excess that you don't need. I do have to do a little bit of soldering because I'm going to have this piece on the back and then this piece on the front. So there's the back, and if this was on the wall, set off the wall a little bit, I can see a little glow around the edge, which is exactly what I want. So the next thing I have to do is I need to cut this off, and then I need to cut a piece that's going to be the length here, and then we can solder those two together to the power, and then find some hanging hardware, and we are good to go. There are very faint little black dots where our soldering connections are. And so I will cut just beyond that. Take an X-Acto knife and just expose that. I'm just going to feed this into the groove here. I'm not going to glue anything in just yet. I might not even glue this in at all since it's a nice tight fit. So I got that in there, so I'll cut it there, and then I'll feed the wire through here onto that. And that should power the whole thing. This is exactly how you would do different colors, or if you don't have a continuous shape, you just cut and wire it all together. So the first thing I need to do is just get some solder on those little copper points right there. If you are thinking, he's not showing me close-ups of the soldering, that is definitely on purpose. I'm not here to teach you how to do soldering and electrical work. I have some liquid electrical tape that I'm going to cover that up with. This liquid electrical tape takes like 5 minutes to dry, so if you need to build it up, you can do one coat, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then do another coat. A little notch in here for the wires to go behind. I went ahead and made some hanging hardware for this. Standard hardware just wouldn't stick out far enough to clear the back neon. It turns out I actually don't like the neon on the back. I don't like the outer glow. On this other one over here, I did not put the neon on the back, and I actually prefer the look of that. Another thing I did was I found some paintable conduit and I painted it the same color as the wall. Turns out I don't like that either. On this one over here with the cord just dangling, I actually prefer that look. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it seems a little bit more natural, a little less rigid, a little more playful, but I prefer just the cord hanging down. So I'm actually going to take this paintable conduit off the wall over here. If you are one of those who have already commented saying, that's not neon, neon is actually a gas, you are a jerk face and you are not getting a Christmas card this year. The neon strips are pretty bright. I would not want them any brighter, and I cannot see the little individual LED lights in there. It looks authentic. It looks like neon. Very happy with the quality of these guys. I was able to get 2 lights out of one package, so you could buy one of these neon strips here and a couple power supplies and you're good to go. If you have a CNC, this might make the perfect project to batch out and sell either on Etsy or at craft shows. I was able to cut this out on my Stepcraft in about 5 minutes. That includes the channel as well as the outside profile. Everything about this just screams CNC. That being said, I do have these for sale on my website. They say make and play, and I'll add more designs as time goes on. They are just the MDF boards. That means you will have to paint them yourselves. You'll have to buy the LED lights, and you'll have to buy the power supply and the hanging hardware. But it's a fun little thing where I start the project, you finish it, you hang it on your wall, you have a good time. One package will cover 2 of these signs, or one of these signs plus a leftover to have fun and experiment on your own. The LED strips will fit in here, no glue, just friction fits right into the channel. You wrap it around back and you add some hanging hardware. So there's no soldering, no real tools except for attaching some hanging hardware. That will be available at makesomething.com, link down below, of course. Editor Dave from the future here. Just wanted to let you know that we have Make and Play t-shirts available in the store. So if you like making and playing, like me, grab a shirt. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll have a brand new woodworking project for you in a couple days. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something. If you are making these for sale, you might want to clean up the back a little bit. Right now I just have duct tape holding the wires on there, and it's not very professional, so you might want to find a better solution than that. I mean, that's not terribly ugly, but it just doesn't seem professional. And on this one, I used the picture frame hanging hardware with the wire. And then I also added a couple of bumpers on the bottom here so it sits off the wall just a little bit. And again, thank you to Simply Safe for sponsoring today's video. Visit simplysafe.com/makesomething to learn more.